this video, we'll discuss about the client and server architecture. Uh, Client is a machine that sends a request to the server, and server is another machine that sends back the response to the client. We'll take an example of Facebook. Okay, so client here is your browser that is sending the request to the server. Now, when you type www.facebook.com, how will your browser know that you have to send the data to Facebook server? Now we have something called a DNS server. This server has the domain names mapping. So let's say the IP address of Facebook is something, one whatever it can be, that is mapped to the facebook.com domain, and this is the server that has those details. So your client, that is the web browser, makes an request to this DNS server to get the IP address of Facebook server. Once it gets back the response, now this client will send the data to the request to Facebook server. This data or this request to the server is sent using HTTP protocol. HTTP. This protocol is something that we will discuss on a separate video, but uh, for this request, it will always send using the HTTP protocol. Now, once this request is received to the server, it sends back the HTML to the client as response. Now, how will the server know that I have to send this response to this client? So let's say there are hundreds and thousands of billions of clients that is sending the request to Facebook server using this protocol, but HTTP protocol. But how is it supposed to know that which client I have to send back the response? That happens when in this request, when the client sends the request to the server using this HTTP protocol, in the headers, it will already have the IP address of the client. So when the request is sent to the server, it will have the IP address of the client in the headers. So the server will send back the HTML to the same to the client that has sent the request using that IP address. It will identify. So that is how the response is being sent. Uh, Now we also have something called the ports. What is a port? So port port is usually something we have approximately 16,000 ports on every machine. Port is where actually the data is being sent to or being routed to. So when you're sending a request from the client, when you're sending data from the client to the server using the HTTP, that is actually being sent to the port. So the server always listens to a specific port. In case of HTTP, we have port number 80. So the server, when it will keep listening on the port number 80 to 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 the incoming HTTP request. When it receives, it will process that request and it will send back the response. So port is where the actual communication happens between the client and the server. So this is the gist of the client and server architecture and how the communication happens between them. Yeah, thank you.